The old white farmhouse sat at the edge of the road like a forgotten memory, its roof sagging, paint peeling, and windows clouded with dust. Most people drove past it without a second glance. But when Daniel stopped his truck that foggy morning, something about that house made him put the brakes on. Maybe it was the way the morning light hit its broken porch, or maybe it was something deeper, a pull he couldn't explain. What he didn't know was that this house, the one everyone had given up on, was about to change his life in ways he could never imagine. Daniel had never thought he'd raise his daughter alone. Life had a cruel way of reshaping dreams. His wife, Emily, had passed away 2 years ago after a short battle with cancer, leaving him with their 8-year-old daughter, Lily, and a heart so heavy he sometimes felt it might stop altogether. They'd been living in a cramped city apartment ever since, surrounded by noise, deadlines, and memories that refused to fade. The farmhouse came into his life by accident. He'd been driving through the countryside on a weekend trip with Lily, trying to give her a taste of open air and green fields, when he saw the for sale sign. The price was laughably low, so low it almost felt like a scam. The land stretched wide, overgrown with wildflowers and tangled fences, but Daniel saw something no one else did. He saw a place where Lily could run barefoot again, where laughter could echo through rooms, where maybe, just maybe, they could start over. Within a week, he'd bought it. He didn't have much, just a small savings account and a handful of tools, but he had determination. He told Lily they were going to build their dream house together. Her eyes had lit up in that innocent, trusting way only a child's can. "We'll make it beautiful again, Daddy," she said, clutching his hand. The first few days were filled with optimism. They scrubbed the floors, patched holes in the roof, and pulled weeds from the yard. It was hard work, but it felt healing, almost sacred. They slept in sleeping bags, told stories by candlelight, and laughed when the wind howled through the broken windows. But life had other plans. A call came from the city, his old job offering a short-term contract that paid double what he usually made. It was enough to cover repairs and maybe even buy proper furniture. He couldn't say no. So he left the farmhouse for 3 weeks, promising Lily that when he came back, they'd make it perfect together. He dropped her off with her grandmother, kissed her forehead, and drove away with a full heart and a plan. When he returned, nothing could have prepared him for what he found. The front door was wide open. The grass was freshly cut. Curtains, ones he didn't own, fluttered in the window. For a second, he thought he'd come to the wrong place. But it was his farmhouse. His tools were still in the shed, his coffee mug on the porch railing. Except now, there was smoke rising from the chimney. Someone was living inside. He stepped quietly up the porch, every creak beneath his boots echoing in his chest. When he pushed the door open, he froze. 2 women stood in the kitchen. One, maybe in her early 30s, wearing an oversized sweater and holding a ladle over a pot of soup. The other, younger, sat at the table sketching something in a notebook. They both turned toward him, startled but not frightened. "Who are you?" Daniel demanded, his voice harsher than he intended. The older woman blinked, setting the ladle down slowly. I could ask you the same," she said softly. "This place was abandoned." "No," he said firmly. "I bought it." The two exchanged a glance. The younger one stood, her eyes glistening with something that wasn't quite fear, more like exhaustion. "Please," she said, her voice trembling. "We didn't mean to intrude. We just needed somewhere safe." He noticed then how thin they were, how their clothes hung loosely, and how tired their eyes looked. Something in him softened, though he didn't want it to. "Safe from what?" he asked. The older woman sighed. "From him." The next few hours were a blur. Their names were Sarah and Mia, sisters who had run away from an abusive home in another town. Sarah had worked 2 jobs to keep them fed, but when their stepfather found out where they were staying, they'd fled into the night. The farmhouse, with its broken gate and empty rooms, had seemed like a miracle, a place no one would look for them. Daniel didn't know what to do. He had every right to throw them out, but when he looked at Sarah holding Mia close, trembling as though the wind itself might carry danger, something inside him broke. He knew that look. He'd seen it in his own eyes after Emily died, fear mixed with loss, and the fragile hope that maybe, just maybe, things could get better. He told them they could stay for the night. Just one night, he insisted. But that night turned into a week. And that week turned into something else entirely. Sarah was quiet but hardworking. She cleaned the kitchen, cooked for everyone, even fixed a broken fence post. Mia and Lily became inseparable, two little girls chasing fireflies and painting stones in the yard. Daniel found himself smiling more than he had in years. The farmhouse was coming alive, not just with repairs, but with warmth. With life, but small towns have long memories and sharp tongues. When the neighbors noticed two unfamiliar women living with a single father, whispers began. And when someone reported trespassers at the old farmhouse, everything came crashing down. Police cars arrived one morning, flashing lights cutting through the dawn mist. Sarah and Mia panicked, clutching their bags. Daniel tried to explain, but words fell apart under the weight of suspicion. They were taken to a shelter pending investigation. As they were driven away, Mia's small hand pressed against the window, reaching for Lily's. For the first time in years, Daniel felt truly powerless. He spent days fighting through paperwork and phone calls, determined to prove they deserved another chance. He learned their story in full, the abuse, the escape, the nights spent hungry and terrified. When he finally stood in front of a weary social worker and said, "They have a home with me," he meant it. Not just as words, but as a vow. Months passed. The farmhouse bloomed with color, fresh paint, mended fences, laughter echoing again. And then, one golden afternoon, a car pulled into the driveway. Sarah stepped out, holding Mia's hand. Daniel didn't say anything. He didn't need to. The way Lily ran to them, the way Sarah's eyes filled with tears, it said everything. The farmhouse that had once been abandoned now overflowed with life. Three souls who had lost everything had somehow found one another in the ruins of a forgotten place, and standing on that porch, Daniel realized something. Sometimes, you don't choose who you save. Sometimes, you just open the door, and love walks in disguised as a stranger.